Hello, tile friends. Welcome back to another episode of Tile Money, the podcast where I, Luke Miller, interview and discuss the business of tile installation. Today, I'm interviewing Paul Lucia out of Houston, Texas. Paul, how are you today?
Good this morning. And yourself?
I'm doing really good. Thank you. Appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be an interview on my podcast. And I know we're all going to learn a lot from what you've created, the business you've created there, Cabot and Rowe. Can you tell us a little bit about your business, how long you've been there, et cetera?
I came to Houston in 1993 or 94 to build my brother's house. I'm originally from the Philadelphia area. The reason why Cabot and Rowe is the name of the company is anybody familiar with the section around suburban Philadelphia is, that's where Washington crossed the Delaware and lots of steeped in history. So I wanted a business name that sounded like we were the lawyers that funded the Mayflower.
Okay.
Because those were the people I was targeting.
Right.
John Cabot lent money to King George to fight the Americans. So anybody who knows that is my target audience.
Okay. Excellent. I like that. Very specific.
Yeah.
Very nice. So you've been doing business there then since 94 in Houston?
Correct.
Okay. Before we get into the meat of your business, do you have any hobbies or interests after work?
I enjoy playing pool. I'm in an 8-ball league a
Okay.
couple nights a week. Keeps me active and out of the house. Otherwise, I have an RV. We love traveling across the United States and national parks, and there's so much out there to see. So we do that about 2 months a year. We take road trips.
Good for you. Excellent.
Out there.
That sounds really nice. All right. So, in our Facebook group, Tile Money, we were discussing pricing earlier this morning, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is you said a couple things about your market. And I know I've been watching, some of the nationwide markets in Texas and maybe some other places, other states are known to be very competitive, very cutthroat when it comes to pricing. And you even said it's not uncommon to see signs offering for $1 a square foot installation price for tile. I assume tile flooring, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you can go on Craigslist Houston today and see people advertising for $1.75 a square foot.
Wow. So would you say that the mindset in Houston and your area is to be the cheapest bidder and to?
I think the concept amongst customers is I can hire some migrant for a low amount of money and there's no value to the work because I don't really care if this guy earns a living or not. And sad to say that that's true. And I see that a lot of times in postings on Nextdoor and things like that. I need my house painted, my $1 million house painted.
Yeah.
Who can do it cheap?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
And then conversely, there's a lot of guys out there, businessmen of all stripes, who just, I got to get more work. I got to get more work. I got to be in line with everybody else. If I'm a little bit cheaper, I'll work more.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's true, but you wind up giving it away.
Yeah.
Yourself to death.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I see is a lot of these competitive prices. You might still be able to make a living and maybe even a good living. But a lot of people are working really long hours and working 6 or 7 days a week to bring home, what should be brought home in 40 hours or less.
Correct.
So it's pretty sad out there. So now with your business, now I'm going to quote you again. Your pricing seems to be much higher. Of course, you offer, a lot more to your clientele, and we're going to talk about that. But you mentioned that together with a helper, your daily rates could be somewhere around $1,500 a day.
Correct.
Do remodel work. So let's talk about how you've distinguished yourself and how you found your customer base in a market such as Houston.
My belief is the keys to the kingdom for me rely on interior designers because they are right at the top. They're working for, the wife, the husband. These people are captains of industry or philanthropists or whoever who can afford to drop, $120 a square foot on some tile.
Okay.
Well, if they're spending that to buy it, you'd really want somebody skilled to put it in and who can guarantee their work.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal to me, is being able to guarantee our work forever. I mean, I've given a lifetime guarantee my entire career, and it doesn't make sense why anybody wouldn't.
Right. So you give a lifetime warranty on all your work, no matter who the, okay.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's stone and cement. It should be there forever.
right, right. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been thinking a lot about lately is, because of course, if you've followed what I've been doing, I've been interviewing, companies who offer lifetime warranties or 25, 50-year warranties. And a lot of the discussions in the groups, when warranties come up, I've kind of been surprised at the lack of willingness on contractors' parts to offer a really long warranty for their work. I've always thought, like you thought, this shouldn't ever need to go anywhere, unless if somebody wants to aesthetically change something. So that's interesting.
Correct.
Back to,
Let me tell you a quick story on that.
okay.
I started in tile work when I bought a house next door to an 80-year-old Italian master.
Okay.
So I started helping him out, being a good neighbor. I was 25.
Okay.
And we would go to job sites that he had done 50 years prior. We'd walk into this bathroom and it looked like he did it yesterday.
Wow.
It was all wet set, sand, cement, and that was it.
Wow.
No bag, nothing. Your grout choice was gray. I mean, he did it old school.
Yeah.
And so now I'm thinking, if we have all these fancy products and membranes and waterproofing and uncoupling and crack isolation and sound control, I should be able to at least match what he did with sand and cement.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. Plus, that also distinguishes me from everybody else in my market, because you got to remember, they are thinking it's just some guy with a bucket of tools from the Home Depot parking lot.
Right, right. So are you offering, and telling everybody about your warranty, that you stand behind your work?
Correct. And normally what happens when we go out for an estimate is I do an on-the-spot estimate.
Mm-hmm.
I just got my pricing down really well. I do it time and materials. I will make allowances for tile if they don't have anything picked out. Okay. And we sometimes change the numbers as they select materials or options. But when I go home, I write them an email that says, this is the ballpark price we came up with. And included in that is a statement to the effect of, with every job, we work one job at a time, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, till it's finished. You have our complete attention. Okay. Along with that comes our lifetime guarantee that your shower will never leak and your tiles will never fall or crack off the wall. I mean, I don't warranty earthquakes or floods or anything like that. I mean, it's common sense, but it's just extremely reassuring to the customer that I'm going to be around. I've lived in the same house for 20 years in a nice neighborhood. They know where to find me.
Right. Yeah, that's huge. I really like that. Going back to the designers, I just wanted to touch on that for a few more minutes. How much of your work comes from designers?
I think that's the tip of the spear kind of thing. It gets my foot in the door. And then once I work for a client, and I want to keep working for that client, because I do try to screen them out. Then I tell them, hey, anybody else who needs work done, or if you really enjoyed what we did, thank you for this huge check. Please tell all your friends. Right. And I make sure I say that, and I use humor and my sparkling wit to charm them into, they're going to go back to work. They're going to go to a cocktail party. They're going to go to a New Year's Eve party and say, hey, this guy just did my bathroom. He was so wonderful. You have to hire him. And that's what I not only want them to say, but I encourage them to say that, so that's how my business spreads. The designer gets me in the door, and the rest is up to me.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, I think that's a really important point that you just stressed, because so many of us rely on word of mouth and repeat business and repeat customers. But unless you're, kind of gently prodding, that's not quite the word I want to use, but nudging, gently, telling them, hey, please tell your friends about me, and then maybe stay in contact. Do you stay in contact with your customers? Do you have a system in place to stay in contact?
Yeah, I call them back every once in a while. Certainly, like we just finished a house right before Christmas. It was a kitchen, bathroom remodel where we remodeled about half the house. It's a small house.
Okay.
So they just moved in. So it's going to take a while for them to get furniture and decorate. And then so I'll come back in a few months and say, hey, now that it's all done, can I go do a photo shoot? And, did you think of any other projects you'd like done? Or, hey,
Yeah.
did you talk to your other friends? And I don't mind at all asking them, what friends, have you had them over and what did they like, what did they didn't like, and
Yeah.
get feedback that way.
That's great.
My goal is that I want to be their answer guy when it comes to everything related with their house.
Okay.
If they got a light bulb out, I want them to call me.
Yeah.
If I can't fix it, I know somebody who does.
Mm-hmm.
So having a good network of subcontractors and fellow colleagues that you can refer stuff to is critical.
Yeah.
It takes years to find anybody decent
Yeah.
that I can trust. And so that way, whenever they have a question about their house, they just call me.
Yeah.
So
I like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another great point. Thank you. Yeah, having that referral list. How many times do we get asked, hey, do you know an electrician or a painter, et cetera? And if we can't, if we have an answer for our customer, hey, this guy, I recommend him, or here's two choices, or whatever the case might be, they're gonna think, hey, that Paul, he's a professional and he works with professionals. We want to refer people that make us look good, other than saying, well, I don't know. I mean, even when it comes to tile work, I get to know the other good tile contractors, because if I'm too busy, I'll say, well, call Adam, or call, Mike down south, or whatever the case is, because I want to look like I know, and I want to leave an impression on that person's mind.
Exactly. But I'm not afraid to say I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I had an excellent drywall guy. Unfortunately, he moved back to Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't found a replacement yet.
Yeah.
So I'll tell them that. I mean, it's what happens. And that short little story makes it more humanizing and reasonable, and that they can understand that.
Yeah. It sounds to me like you built your business on communication. Would you say that's true?
Communication and customer service. I like to think that we offer a concierge level of service.
Okay.
I often give estimates after work at night.
Okay.
And, for busy professionals or moms and, with kids in school and stuff, it's a lot easier for them to meet a contractor in the evening than during daytime hours. Plus, that allows me to work all day long. I can put in an 8-hour day without having to take off to go give an estimate. That's where it keys in the on-the-spot estimates. Takes me about, if we do the full spiel, about 2 hours to run through a complete bathroom remodel and for me to hand them a price.
Okay.
The other thing that alleviates me from is having to go back to my office or home and try to remember whose estimates I got to crank out before, 2 weeks goes by and I forget all about it.
Yeah.
The other thing is that giving them an on-the-spot estimate gives them a price right away, so they can decide whether or not I'm in their price category or that's what they expected. Plus, it's also a lot harder for them to tell me no to my face than by an email.
Right.
The other thing is, with going back to the concierge level of services, when I'm giving that estimate, the first thing I always talk about is protecting their home. We talk about taking down artwork, removing objects from a narrow hallway, then removing their personal items, so that when we get there, we put down tarps and plastic and all that other stuff. But the first thing we talk about is he's going to protect my house. He's got my interests in mind.
Right.
And, when we talk about things that they would never have thought about, certainly art on the other side of the wall. Do they have pets that we need to be concerned about escaping or taking care of during the day? Things like that. And they really appreciate it. And that comes with a price that they're willing to pay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all those little things that add up and really sell the difference. Now, Let me ask you a question. When you're you say you give on the spot estimates because, you've been doing this long enough, your numbers. Um, are you giving, I understand you want to get in the person's house and you want to give this estimate in the house. Are you doing any pre-qualifications before you go to their house?
Usually I ask who referred them, how they found me.
Okay.
And that's usually a good indication. Luckily, I use Nextdoor, and much like I do the John Bridge Forum, where I give out advice for free.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to regrout, but you may want to look at these other things. Or our houses were not built to be able to support tile. You'll need an extra beam or some more joists. And I'm not saying, hey, I want to come over and give you a price. I'm just saying this is the kind of friendly neighborly advice.
Yeah.
So with that, or which designer sent them, or which tile showroom sent them. Plus, I also look up their house on Zillow or the local tax authority website, see how long they've owned it, how much they paid for it, when they moved in, any improvements they've had done. So I got a little bit of a history before I walk in the front door.
Okay. Nice. I like that approach. On Nextdoor, so are you finding quite a bit of leads there by, I know you're just being helpful and neighborly. Do you get a lot of people calling you from Nextdoor?
Yeah, fortunately, I live in I was smart enough to luckily buy in a neighborhood that is now a desirable place to live.
Okay.
And the average home price probably starts around $500,000.
Okay.
And being Houston, we have a ton of engineers and doctors running around. And largely, they're going to do their homework online somewhere, researching waterproofing materials or something before they call. And that's when my name will appear.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, I like that. I guess that is interesting about Nextdoor. You obviously have to live in the neighborhood where you want to market to.
Well, but before that, there was John Bridge.
Right.
And, I find it stunning that, I live in the fourth largest city in America, and there's me and me on John Bridge.
Really?
Like, why aren't there 10 of us? There's certainly enough work for all of us.
Yeah.
But you think, and here's a good example of using the internet. And today's estimate, the one I have this afternoon, she found me through John Bridge and didn't know it.
Okay.
Because I go, oh, that website with the yellow and blue, and oh, that's it. Yeah.
Right.
So they know I'm on there.
Right.
But I had this customer. She got fed up, an average soccer mom. She got fed up with her showers leaking. Mm-hmm. Went online and researched leak-proof showers and found out, hey, you can do this.
Yeah.
So she researches everybody's methods and falls in love with Veti. So she does what everybody does, of course, is she calls Germany. So they said, well, we don't know who in Houston installs our product, but if you call this Dow Tile, they'll tell you.
Okay.
So her next phone call is to Dow Tile. So she calls him up, and Johnny answers the phone, and he says, look, he doesn't install Veti products, but if you want it done right, call Paul.
Okay.
So now think about how short that chain is. Some woman I had never met, lives 20 miles away, desperate to not have her shower leak, and I get the lead. So I go over there, and there's another remodeling company already doing her bathroom. So I'm there just to do the tile work and waterproof the shower. And the owner of the company comes over, and he's irate. How can you charge so much to do this? I can't believe you did it. Well, and I show him what I'm doing. And at the time, it was a full Curdy shower. Well, the salesman comes over. How do you get to do this? How is it you get to charge so much? So I show him it's a Curdy shower. And he's fascinated. He has never seen this before. And he goes, wait a minute. You mean I can charge a premium for this? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah.
And he just thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
It's out there. You can do it.
Yeah. I love that story. That's a perfect story. I mean, someone the power of the internet. Someone 20 miles from your house ends up finding John Bridge, calls Germany, then brings it back home closer to you, and you've had a relationship with Del Tile, the showroom, and they know you by name and know the quality of work, and they say call Paul, and you get the job.
Yep.
That's great.
Happens regularly.
And that goes along with another quote. I wanted to quote you again. Talking about marketing, you said, "We market ourselves as learned problem solvers." Can you expand on that thought?
Sure. I don't have the greatest people skills. I don't think so anyway. So I pose myself as, I take advantage of my gray hair, and I put on my plaid flannel jacket and pull my best Bob Villa routine where, yeah, I don't need this job, but let me tell you, son, kind of thing. But, in a polite way, we have fun during our estimates.
Yeah.
I have, but I've got the whole thing worked out. And what helps is I bring my laptop, and on there is a file of pictures that shows how a liner should have been done and what happens when they're not. And so I teach them what they have and why we don't want it and why it's failed. So it's sort of like X-ray vision, and that I just can quickly walk them through all this stuff without boring them to tears or losing them along the way. They understand the problem. And then I, of course, come along with the answer of, no, this is how we're going to fix it and why it will never happen again and why I can give you a lifetime guarantee. And so that way they understand the process. And one woman went so far as to say to me, "I wish you never told me that." And I asked her why. And she said, "Well, because now I can't hire my regular tile guy ever again."
Yeah.
Because he obviously doesn't know. And so then I right then will say something like, "Now, everybody else who comes in to give you a bid, ask them how they're going to waterproof their shower. Because if they're going to do the same method you just had me, that's failing,
Right.
why would you want to do that again?"
Right.
And the vast majority of my competition still does vinyl liners, 80-year-old technology.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I can tell you right now, I mean, just from having this conversation with you, I've got to change the way I'm doing estimates, because my mindset is I'm in and out, probably in 30 minutes, and I give my price without a lot of explanation. So I need to improve.
Yeah, it's making a human connection with the customer. And where I learned this was from many years ago. I went from having 15 employees to barely being able to feed myself.
Okay.
So I was delivering pizzas at night. And I thought, well, I'm not going to go to my local pizza store. These people can't afford a tip. So I went a couple neighborhoods away into a wealthy suburb. And I noticed that they all had entry halls with grandfather clocks and Oriental rugs. So I went home and became expert in grandfather clocks and Oriental rugs.
Okay.
So that the next time they would call in, I would remember their dog's name. "Oh, you're the people with that lovely view over the mountainside." And my tips were then 5 or 6 times everybody else's, because there was a human connection. It wasn't about delivering a pizza anymore. It was a person they cared about.
Yeah.
Delivering something to their home that they wanted. And it's still the same basic philosophy today, just for more money.
Yeah. I like it. So did I hear that right? You had a business, and then you were delivering pizza at night.
Yeah, I hitched my wagon to one company. They went under, and I went with them.
Okay.
And I learned to never do that again.
Okay, I see.
It's like working for one general contractor. Why would you want to do that?
Yeah. So what could you tell a person who's just starting out? Maybe they're just thinking about, creating a business, a tile business or remodeling business. what kind of advice would you say, knowing what you know now, what would you tell them or tell yourself as a younger man?
One, know your numbers. If you're laying an underlayment, you have to know how long it takes you to do that, what that underlayment costs you, and then conversely, your overhead, your profit, and all that stuff. You got to have your numbers down cold.
Mm-hmm.
Without that, you could be wasting money or making too much in other areas, and you really have to have that down.
Yeah.
And that's fairly simple to do. A continuing education course and an accountant will get you straight on that. The other thing is you got to know your craft and you got to produce it, because that's what these people are paying for. If you do a shitty job installing somebody's brakes on their car and their car doesn't stop, they're not going to hire you again.
Right.
So you got to know your product.
Yeah.
Continuing education, know your reps. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know. Try things out. Visit other colleagues, learn how they do stuff. You really got to know your craft.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is the third part is you can be experts in both of those, but you got to have some sort of sales skills and find your niche. There are guys who love commercial work. Personally, I can't stand it. But if that's your niche, then be the best at it.
Yeah.
And people are looking for that. They're willing to pay for that.
Yeah. Good. Three pointers there. Know your numbers, know your niche, and know your craft.
Yes, definitely. You need all three of those.
Okay. Excellent. Was there like a life-changing moment or a business-changing moment or a group or a book you read? Can you kind of pinpoint something, or was it?
I know exactly when that was.
Okay.
I was doing a job in Lake Charles, which is 170 miles away. And we were bored at night in the hotel room. And I finally decided to join the John Bridge Forum.
Okay.
This is quite a few years ago. And it was just a stroke. I mean, I thought it was hot shit and I knew everything, like everybody does. And I learned very rapidly. I was ashamed of what I did. I thought, my work was crap all of a sudden. And, I needed to really up my game and learn stuff.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the fine people on that website were there to more than be happy to lend a hand and teach me what I needed to know.
Yeah.
And I was eager to learn it. Very fortunately, John Bridge lives in Houston and had 5 adopted children, none of whom are in the tile industry. So he was about to retire and wanted somebody to basically hand the torch to.
Yeah.
So John has referred a number of people to me. Coincidentally, his sons own restaurants in my neighborhood. So it's this coincidence of happenstance that just I happened to be in the right place. Also, that nobody else from Houston was on John Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lock on the market.
That's amazing. Yeah.
It stuns me to this day.
Yeah.
With a city with so many engineers running around, and certainly with the oil industry and the energy industry here. In fact, that's one of my jokes I make when I get to somebody's house is, who in the house is the engineer? And usually somebody is of some sort.
Yeah.
That's when I know they can handle the math right away and the chemistry right away.
Okay.
Because that's their thing. But yeah, that getting onto the John Bridge Forum turned the world around.
Yeah.
I got to meet a bunch of really, really great people who have really the best of the industry in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I'm not as active on there as I used to be, but I remember you, Paul, and you are active on there. I remember, commenting, having discussions. These are all things that we should be doing. If we can't do it on a local level, like I have, a 2-year-old, so I wasn't able to go out and do a lot of things like after hours type of networking. So I also have gotten more involved in, of course, the Facebook groups in the last 2 years than I have been. And it's also up my game. And for anybody who doesn't know, the John Bridge forums, before Facebook was the place to go. And John has marketed that as a DIY kind of help center. So that's when Paul talks about leads, that's why it's so powerful to be on there and be active, because the John Bridge Forums, again, is the biggest DIY tile help forum
Yes.
on the internet. So when people are searching for why does a shower leak, or how can I build a shower, you know, and then they decide to hire a professional, they're already familiar with it. They're going to ask, and almost weekly, you probably see somebody saying, you know, across the country, I'm talking about, you know, is there a tile professional in Colorado, Denver, or whatever? So if you're the one guy on in there, you know,
Correct.
chances are you'll get that lead at least, if not the whole job.
Plus, in the signature line, I could add my company website.
Okay.
So that upped my Google score
Yeah.
and gave people an easy way to find me.
Yeah.
Because usually people have heard of me somehow through a referral or web searching, and then I just got to make it easy for them to get my phone number.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I really appreciate it, Paul. Thank you for taking the time to interview here on the Tile Money podcast.
Do you have time for a little more real quick?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Definitely.
I wanted to expand a little bit more about, what we charge per day. And like I said, it's $1,500 a day for me and a helper.
Mm-hmm.
And why we can do that.
Okay.
Compared to competition. The going rate for a tile setter in Houston is about $120 a day.
Okay.
So there's obviously a over 10 times multiplier there. And how can this happen?
Uh-huh.
As we've covered, it's those guys are not my competition. And John Bridge preached that endlessly, and I finally sunk into my thick head. If they want to hire those guys, they're going to hire those guys.
Right.
So I don't even worry about them. That's just not whom I have to think about. I'm only focused on the customer and what their perception is. And I've preached before, the whole concept is perception of value. If the customer perceives that the money they're going to pay me has value to them, they're going to pay me. And I often equate this to a Starbucks cup of coffee as opposed to buying one at Dunkin' Donuts.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of people who buy coffee at Starbucks and a lot more who buy it at Dunkin' Donuts. Well, I'd rather make my money selling an expensive cup of coffee than 10,000 cheap cups of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you find those customers and how do you flesh them out? And that's really the mindset that allows me to charge what I charge, which I think is fair for what we do. We're highly talented at what we do. We guarantee it forever. As been said before. So that puts us on a par with other learned professionals who do what they do. I mean, yes, I work manually for a living, but that doesn't mean what I do doesn't have value. So with that concept in mind, it's how can you get the customers to understand that you're the person they want to hire? And way back when, I was clicking through the John Bridge site and I saw a website for Madronas Tile. Are you familiar with them at all?
I've heard of them, yeah.
I think they're up in Washington or Oregon. And they're in some tiny little town.
Right.
But their work was just stunning. I mean, this was before WaterJet, and they were doing vent covers and stuff. It was just amazing work.
Yeah.
I started to chat with them. I'm like, well, how can you charge them, when you live in this tiny little town? And they're like, well, we've trained them that this is just what it costs.
Yeah.
And I got it, like right away, that this is what a good job costs.
Yeah.
And they want to hire you or they don't. So to all the other guys out there, don't worry about what your competition charges.
Yeah.
If they want you, they're going to hire you. So you have to present yourself in a way where they would be confident in knowing that they're getting value for their money. Their perception is you're the guy.
Yes.
So be the guy. It's really all it is.
Be the guy. Yeah. I like it. I like it a lot. Thank you for expanding on that as well. I know a lot of people are going to have, trouble wrapping their head around that, but you did a really good job explaining that, you don't want every customer, and
No,
I,
really.
I assume you've kept your business small on purpose, correct,
Yes.
Paul? Yeah.
Well, I'm 56 years old. I don't need to work every day. I don't want to work every day. I want to get in my RV when I can and see the country.
Yeah.
Um, you know, uh, but the hard work is paying off. It took me a while to get there. It's not like this happened overnight. Um, but yeah, it's a working model.
So, and I
It,
want to,
it works for me. It can work for anybody.
yeah, yeah, you in Houston, and what's interesting too is a lot of the stuff we talk about, like, protect, like taking pictures off the wall, protecting the home, spending 2 hours on a free estimate that you might not, see a return on. These are all not possible if you're charging too little, if you're charging competitively. One by one, you start to take these things away. You take away the 2 hour visit, first of all. I mean, because you have to do 10 30-minute visits. You take away protecting the home, because you can't even afford the plastic and blue tape to do it.
Right.
So, and there's a market for those people. If they're
So,
like you said, Paul, if they're going to hire the $10 a square foot guy, that's what they're going to do at the end of the day. But you found your market over here, and you've said, I only need, 20 customers a year, or whatever the case is. You don't need,
if that, we might do, and we do larger projects.
yeah.
We do complete bathroom remodels. I mean, there's the occasional backsplash and the occasional kitchen floor.
Sure.
But generally, we're at a customer's house for about a month. So I probably do, on a good year, 10 projects.
Okay, I see. Nice.
Yeah.
And how about your help? Does he mind having 2 months off a year, or how does that work?
No, I made the smartest move of my life, and I married him. So we travel together and vacation that way.
I see.
That way
That's
there's
how it
no,
works. Good.
yeah, well, that way we don't have to worry about vacation times and
Right.
scheduling and everything else. So
Yeah.
that's worked out nicely.
That makes a lot of sense, Paul. I know a lot of guys were probably wondering that. I was thinking too. I don't know if I could get a helper to stick around for 2 months, but
Well, the luxury of being 56 years old.
yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I applaud you. I something to look forward to, and something to, set a goal for.
Yeah, and then there's diversity as well. Tiling is or remodeling is a portion of it. I have some small empire of rental property as well.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that's a side income that really helps. And for how we work that is we buy a house, a shell, and then work on it when I'm not working at work.
Uh-huh.
So we'll have something to do in the meantime, just to keep busy, between contracts.
Okay.
So we're not in a rush to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to be in a rush in this business. That's for sure.
No, I say that all the time. We get paid for finesse.
Mm.
You want the bulls in the china shop, you're hiring somebody else. That's not us.
Yeah.
I don't bid by the square foot. I don't even think that way, because it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time again, Paul, and I hope to have you back someday and kind of continue this conversation.
Oh, my pleasure.
I'd be willing to. And thank you for being an active member in my Facebook group.
Well, still learning.
Yeah.
No problem.
Excellent. All right, Paul. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your 2018 here. We're winding down, counting the hours down, I guess.
Well, hopefully I can land this estimate this afternoon. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a good one. So
I'm confident you will.
thank you.
All right, Paul. Take care.
Bye.